My grandmother had been dead for 3 days when she suddenly came back to life, but her appetite was monstrous, enough to feed 5 grown men. Uncle 3 said she had simply overcome the threshold of life and death, and her body would only grow stronger. But only I knew there was something terribly wrong with her return. Every night, I would see her standing by our beds, clutching a pig butchering knife, mumbling, 1, 2, 3, as she counted our heads. Summer arrived swiftly. Frogs hidden in the rice paddies began leaping out, their croaks filling the air. This was a time I always enjoyed, going out to the fields with Uncle 4, glass jar in hand, to catch frogs for a meal. Uncle 4, please don't burn half and undercook the other half this time. Last time, I had diarrhea for 3 days straight after eating your cooking. Uncle 4 was my age. He grabbed a plump, round-bellied frog and tried to stuff it into the jar, but the opening was too small. With 2 fingers, he shoved the frog in forcefully, making it let out a single croak before falling silent. "Lily, look at this. This time I guarantee you a delicious meal," Uncle 4 said, straining as he placed the jar on his knee. His fingers squeezed hard, and the jar gurgled. The fat frog sank to the bottom, motionless, silent. Its large, round eyes stared out through the glass. I took the jar, my palm feeling something sticky. Looking down, I saw the jar's rim was covered in greenish-gray slime. A wave of nausea washed over me. "4, Lily, come home for dinner. Don't keep Grandma waiting," Father's call echoed, but to me it sent shivers down my spine. My grandmother was 87 years old. Today was the 2nd day since her return from the dead. Uncle 4 pulled at me for a long time, but I stood rooted to the spot, terrified to go home. The horizon glowed red, painting the thatched roof a vibrant hue. I walked, letting Uncle 4 drag me along, my face devoid of emotion, but goosebumps covered my back. Inside, everyone was gathered around the dinner table. When Grandma saw me enter, her bright, piercing eyes darted around, then fixated on me. "Lily, come here and sit beside Grandma." She extended a wrinkled hand, gently patting the seat next to her, her expression still gentle. My legs felt like lead, stuck to the ground. Father saw me refusing to move, raised his hand, and slapped me hard across the face. "Grandma asked you to sit with her, and you make that face? Who are you showing it to?" Uncle 4 frowned, grabbing Father's hand as he pointed and scolded me. Father snatched his hand away, continuing to point his finger at my nose, roaring, "You despicable plague, you ungrateful wretch. Your grandmother suffered so much to come back from death, and you won't even go near her, putting on such a disrespectful act. Get out to the storage shed." Though I was used to such hurtful words, a pang of pain still twisted in my heart. But I couldn't bring myself to be sad. In fact, I struggled to suppress a smirk. As long as I could stay far away from Grandma, I would do anything. I had barely settled into a squat in the storage shed when Grandma found me. I saw her tiny bound feet standing in a bizarre posture. Normally, people's feet point forward when they walk, but hers were slowly twisting backward, as if about to bend unnaturally. My heart pounded, I swallowed hard, cold sweat soaked my clothes. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to move. Grandma's wrinkled face broke into a grotesque smile, the corners of her mouth stretching higher and higher. "Lily, are you scared of Grandma?" Her bony hands, like dry branches, touched my face. The pain made my eyelids twitch. These hands had once washed my clothes, had stroked my head when Father beat and scolded me, making me cry. But now I realized how rough her hands were, how painful they felt against my skin. The shed was pitch black, unlit. In the darkness, I saw Grandma's face right before me, and my whole body trembled. Her eyes glowed with a terrifying intensity. "Lily, aren't you scared of Grandma?" My voice trembled. How could I not wish for Grandma to come back to life? When I heard she had passed, Father told me that as a girl, I shouldn't cry, and since I had once crawled out of a pile of corpses, my unclean presence would hinder her peaceful transition. I wasn't even allowed to see her one last time. Then, why won't Lily hug Grandma? I could feel the warmth from her palm on my face. The dead are cold, but Grandma was alive again, warm. Yet she had never looked at me with such ravenous, wolf-like hunger before. Bang! The shed door burst open, revealing Uncle 4. Night wind rushed in, carrying the putrid stench of a rotting corpse directly into my nostrils. I smelled a strong, metallic tang on Grandma's hand and couldn't help but retch out several mouthfuls of sour liquid. I could feel an malevolent gaze from above, as if trying to bore through me. My vomit splattered onto Grandma's thick face, leaving a dirty patch. Her feet returned to their normal appearance and she limped away, dragging her feet. Uncle Four stepped forward to help her, but she forcefully swatted his right hand away. It immediately turned red. "Why is her hand so strong?" Uncle Four patted my shoulder. "Lily, just bear with it a little longer. Next spring, when you go to school, Big Brother won't hit you anymore, right?" "Don't talk down to me like that. I don't want to go to school." Uncle Four's eyes widened. He had a square face, and when he stared, he exuded a certain authority. "You silly girl, you're a daughter. If you don't leave the mountain for school next year, you'll just be married off here." He pulled me up with one hand, dragging me toward the north house. I struggled, but he covered my mouth. "Lily, your grandma is in the east house," he whispered into my ear. I froze, as if struck by lightning. Following his gaze, I saw the hunched silhouette of an old woman in the dark room of the east house. In the north house, Father was puffing rhythmically on his tobacco pipe from the earthen bed. Behind a cloth curtain, Uncle Three's heavy snores resonated. "Big Brother, I've brought Lily." I watched Uncle Four turn towards the door, taking the heavy chain once used for the big dog and wrapping it around the doorknob and the iron hook on the wall, one loop after another. Father coughed a few times. He looked at me, his eyes holding an unreadable meaning. "Lily, you'll sleep in this room tonight." A sudden realization struck me. I wasn't the only one who sensed Grandma's strangeness. Uncle Four then shut the window tightly, drew the curtains, obscuring most of the room, then stripped to his waist and got under the covers. I lay beside him, the cold earthen wall on the other side. Father continued to smoke his pipe. He looked up at the dim, dirty yellow light bulb covered in fly droppings on the ceiling, lost in thought. After a long silence, he finally uttered, "The day after tomorrow will be 7 days." I lay on my side, facing the earthen wall. From behind me, Uncle Four's voice drifted. "Big Brother, she's still alive. Have you ever seen a normal person eat an entire pot of rice and an uncooked chicken?" Father, having been raised single-handedly by Grandma, naturally understood her abnormality. So when he discussed it with Aunt Three, who was cooking, they intentionally left that particular chicken unstained, uncooked, and unplucked, just to see if Grandma, who was always so fastidious, would even touch it. But to their surprise, at the dinner table, Grandma ate as if she had been starved for days. She didn't even notice her chopsticks falling to the ground, simply grabbing the plate of chicken in front of her and devouring it. Seeing the red burn marks on Grandma's hand, her mouth sloppily gnawing on the undercooked chicken, with red juice dripping down her chin, Father realized that the grandmother before him had been possessed by something. "Tomorrow, Big Brother, go to the next village and invite Master Huang over to take a look. That old woman keeps staring at Lily, and it's not a good sign." They said Master Huang had almost died as a child, but was saved by a wandering master who took him in as a disciple and taught him his skills. However, these practices were forbidden in the city, so he returned to the mountains, specializing in helping others. Father extinguished his pipe, got off the bed, and checked the chain wrapped around the door again, ensuring it was securely fastened. Then he turned off the light and slipped under the covers. Late at night, heavy, thudding footsteps made me tremble, afraid to move. I hadn't intended to sleep deeply, recalling Grandma's first night back. She had squatted by my head. I squinted, seeing her mouth gape wide, almost to her ears. In the moonlight, her tongue was a vivid red, long and slender. She reached out, her hand moving towards my neck as if to grasp it. Several times, I felt her fingernails brush against my skin. I dared not sleep the entire night. Grandma stared at me just as intensely. I heard the crickets outside the window, then the corner of the wall suddenly fell silent. The summer night was unusually quiet. The more tense I became, the more clearly I heard the frantic pounding of my own heart in my chest. The footsteps grew heavier, duller, as if searching for something in the yard. First, they went into the woodshed, then came out, and the footsteps multiplied, like two people walking side by side. In my imagination, Grandma was like a beast, hands on the ground, scouring the yard for someone. The footsteps gradually moved from the window to the door. I knew she was about to enter the house, but a glimmer of luck sparked in me. The chain on the door was wrapped so many times. Clang! The sound of the chain falling to the ground immediately sent my nerves into overdrive. It was impossible. The chain was locked from the inside. How could she have made it fall from outside? I pressed myself against the wall, daring not to move, only squinting my eyes, afraid of being discovered awake. Inside, Father's snores grew louder, joined by Uncle Three's from the other side. The door opened, but a strange, gurgling, choking sound came from the throat of someone in the house. My heart leaped into my throat. I heard Grandma's teeth clatter, then her footsteps stopped in front of the kitchen, followed by the sound of knives clanging. Someone was standing over me. I didn't dare open my eyes, my hand beneath the blanket clenching my thigh until it went numb. Grandma held a pig butchering knife, examining and counting the heads of each sleeping person. Moonlight filtered through the curtain gap, reflecting a cold gleam off the knife. But apart from me, they slept soundly, as if nothing could wake them. It wasn't until the rooster crowed near dawn that Grandma slowly walked out of the room. Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief, my eyelids heavy, unsure if from terror or a sleepless night. I drifted into a deep sleep. In my dream, I saw Grandma sitting by the river, washing my clothes. She smiled at me. "Our Lily has grown so big, her clothes must be all tight, right? Look at this button, it's loose." My eyes stung. I opened my mouth but couldn't speak, only threw myself into her arms, feeling the warm, sun-dried scent on her. I said, "Grandma, I miss you so much." She chided me gently. "Grandma's hands are still wet. Why did you leave so suddenly?" "Grandma, I miss you so much." I didn't even get to apologize to you, and I was so scared. My nose stung with an unusual bitterness, and my eyes burned. Before Grandma left, we had argued about my name. I stomped off in a huff. By evening, when the adults found me, she was already gone. On the stove, there was still a plate of thandone cakes she had made for me. "Grandma, I'm so scared." I felt a hand on my head. I heard Grandma ask, "Did our Lily see Grandma leave by fire?" My fingertips turned icy cold. Before I could process it, Grandma repeated, "Did our Lily see Grandma leave by fire?" I woke up, drenched in cold sweat. I raised my hand, my palm still lingering with the sensation of hugging Grandma in my dream, and at the same time, doubt crept into my heart. Was she asking if she had been cremated? I bolted upright, walked past the kitchen, and saw the pig butchering knife still neatly hanging on the wall. My throat was parched. I scooped a bowl of cold water and drank it all, instantly feeling wide awake. Stepping outside, I glanced at the frog jar by the window. It was empty, its sides stained with gray-white residue. I remembered Grandma's long, slender tongue from the first night and shivered. "When you asked, your Aunt 3 remembered. Your grandma told us a long time ago that when she passed, we shouldn't keep her in the house, we should burn her immediately." Aunt 3 was busy feeding the chickens. I stood beside her, unconsciously glancing towards the north house. "Your grandma disappeared early this morning. We don't know where she went." A heavy stone seemed to drop from my heart. I continued, "Then why wasn't she cremated? We've never had a precedent for that. What if she was just in a coma and we burned her alive before 7 days were up?" Aunt 3's hand, feeding the chickens, suddenly froze. I followed her gaze and saw a disemboweled chicken stuck in the corner of the coop. "My chicken, you wretched wild animal!" Aunt 3's curses died on her lips halfway through, for beside the chicken lay clear imprints of tiny bound feet. She turned and went inside. When she came out, she carried a bowl filled with raw rice. Aunt 3's face was grim. As she passed me, she shot me a strange, unreadable glance. "Lily, at the eastern end of the village, there's an abandoned house. The family moved to the city and hasn't returned. Your father said if our chickens met with misfortune, you should go to that house to take refuge. Your Uncle 4 has gone to find Master Huang and will be back today. Even if you hear or see anything in that house, don't come back." I watched Aunt 3 pour raw rice grain by grain in front of the door, forming a white line. The line extended to the door of the east room. It was clearly a beautiful, sunny day, the sunlight warm and pleasant on my skin, but when I looked towards the east room, a sense of unease filled my heart. The faded red paper gourd hanging on the door swayed gently in the wind. The window glass reflected the blue sky and white clouds, but inside, the window was pitch black, dimly revealing only a small table on the bed and a messy floral quilt. At night, the shape of that quilt would resemble a distorted figure lying there. The small, warm room of my childhood memories now seemed like a blood-mouthed monster, silently waiting for me. I swallowed, thinking to myself, in broad daylight, no unclean thing would dare harm me. Besides, this is the house I grew up in, I shouldn't be so afraid. Taking a deep breath, I pulled the door open. A rush of hot air enveloped me, carrying an indescribable stench of decay and raw meat. Sunlight streamed in, revealing clear traces on the stove. Around the rim of the pot were many animal hairs, and the bottom of the pot was covered in a thick, reddish, congealed residue. Your Uncle 3 and I tried to open it, but it was stuck. Did you lock it? Aunt 3 asked from behind me. She stepped forward, saw the scene on the stove, and covered her mouth, a look of nausea on her face. Where did this rabbit fur come from? Rabbits. Although our village is surrounded by mountains, it's still inhabited. These animals wouldn't just casually run into the village. Could Grandma, having come back to life, really travel 1,000 miles in one night to catch rabbits? I walked inside. As I opened the inner room's door, a fresh, blood-colored rabbit hide fell from above. I flinched instantly. On the floor of the inner room, and on the bed, fur and bloodstains were scattered everywhere. A chill ran down my spine, and the soles of my shoes felt sticky and slippery from still-wet rabbit blood. I don't know where I found the courage, but I opened the closet, gathered my belongings, mentally preparing myself for guarding through the night. Aunt 3 behind me said, "If it's tainted with blood from breaking the prohibition on killing, it will eat people." I felt no terror, no panic. The fear from last night was completely gone. Perhaps Grandma had given me courage in my dream. I quickly finished packing. "Auntie, go back to your mother's house for a while. Your father and Uncle 3 are at the village secretary's house looking for someone to discuss things with. Listen to me and go hide in that house. Don't let that old woman find you. This living corpse will first seek out those closest to it." I understood Aunt 3's meaning. If it came for me, I would hide in a crowd. After all, with so many eyes watching, I wouldn't be eaten alive. Telling me to hide alone in a house likely meant she feared Uncle 3 might get hurt. I didn't blame Aunt 3. For years, she hadn't been able to bear children, and seeing me grow to 16, it was hard to avoid a sense of resentment and envy. Conveniently, I also didn't want to involve anyone else. "Lily, where are you going?" As I stepped out the door, I immediately ran into Uncle 4 returning. In the scorching summer midday sun, sweat glistened on his forehead, his face flushed red. The defined muscles beneath his white tank top were also ruddy, and prominent blue veins pulsed on the backs of his hands. Uncle 4 leaned on his knees, panting for a long time before recovering. He watched Aunt 3's retreating figure heading to her mother's house without a backward glance, then frowned. "Where's Aunt 3 going?" "She's gone to her mother's. I'm going to hide in the house at the east end of the village for a bit." "Are you out of your mind? Why aren't you going to the village secretary's house? This living corpse is performing a sacrificial ritual. It's about to eat people, and its first target will be those closest to it." My unusually calm demeanor made Uncle 4 stare for a long time, then he straightened up and sighed. He pointed at my small bag and asked what was inside. "Grandma's clothes." But what I heard was absurd, almost comical. He put his hand to his forehead. "Why are you bringing those? Are you going to dress asterisk it when it gets close to you? Just go. Master Huang is following you. He'll catch up as soon as he finishes packing. He told me to come back first to protect you." I shook my head. "You shouldn't be with me. Stop talking nonsense. I'm your Uncle 4. Uncle 4 snatched the small bag, then stomped off towards the east end of the village. Our village lay against the mountainside. The west was the most densely populated area, spreading out in a triangle at the foot of the mountain. The east, frankly, was already within the mountains, though not very deep. As we reached the eastern edge of the village, a gust of wind blew from the forest. Rustling sounds echoed from the gloomy woods. Perhaps the trees were too dense for sunlight to penetrate. "Isn't this Old Man Chu's old house? What about Old Man Chu's house?" A corner of the earthen wall in front of the door had collapsed. That very spot led to a criminal case. The story went that Old Man Chu had gone away for work, and his wife had an affair with another man, even plotting to kill her husband. Unexpectedly, Old Man Chu's daughter overheard them and immediately called the police. Old Man Chu rushed back that very night, not making a sound to his wife nor announcing his return. He took his daughter to his sister's house, then secretly hid in the woodshed. In the middle of the night, seeing the two lovers asleep after their intimacy, he attacked them with a four-pronged harrow. The east side of the village was originally sparsely populated, but after committing the crime, Old Man Chu hid the bodies in the earthen wall and fled. One day, during a rainstorm, blood seeped from the earthen wall, attracting stray pigs that dug around. When the police arrived, they only found a part of the dismembered body, dug out by the pigs. It was incomplete. Even after his arrest, Old Man Chu adamantly refused to reveal the location of the remaining parts of the body. Uncle 4 clapped his hands in amazement. "Goodness, Lily, your Aunt 3 must really care about you. She deliberately chose such a sinister place for you to take refuge." I shot him a glance. The yard was strewn with leaves and the droppings of unknown animals, the thatched roof of the house was long dilapidated, and the windows shattered. I could even see dark stains lingering on the walls inside. After Old Man Chu was arrested, no one cleaned up, so the interior remained a crime scene. Let's go to the shed. Uncle Four and I were about to head towards the woodshed when the main door suddenly swung open. In the mountains, there was only the sound of birds and the wind. The sound of the door opening after so many days of disuse was like a throat that hadn't spoken in a long time, hoarse and jarring. Uncle Four was about to stick his head in to look, but I quickly pulled his hand back. What is it? My scalp tingled, my feet felt nailed to the ground, frozen in place. My chin trembled, and it took a while for me to stammer out, "Don't look." Uncle Four froze, silent. In my line of sight, near the stove deep inside the main house, a woman was squatting. She was flayed, even her eyelids were gone, leaving only her black and white eyeballs protruding. She was looking at us, her mouth moving. Whoosh. A swirling gust of wind swept past us, carrying dry leaves and twigs, almost making me close my eyes. When I looked again, the woman had vanished. "Lily, did you see something?" Uncle Four poked me a few times before shaking me out of my trance. I shook my head, unwilling to say more. Old Man Chu's case, at first glance, seemed like a crime of passion, but there had to be a deeper cause. My mother, because I was a girl, abandoned me in a mountain ravine when I was 7. Grandma found me and brought me home from a pile of rotting corpses. But after returning, I fell seriously ill, forgetting everything about those 4 days in the mountains, and often saw what seemed like ghosts. So, the villagers rumored that I had been raised by ghosts for 4 days. Uncle Four was smart. He knew I had seen something but found it inconvenient to ask further. With such things, it was often better to ignore them than to pay attention. Once you asked, you became entangled. He put a lot of effort into opening the shed door. As soon as the door opened, the wall, built from corn stalks, came into view. The shed's rafters were clean, as if someone had tidied them up. In one corner, firewood was piled high, covered in spiderwebs, with a large, flower-bellied spider resting in the center of its web. I turned to look at Uncle Four, seeing his back to me as if he was untying his belt. I glanced at him, then quietly turned away. Soon, the sound of trickling water echoed behind me. "Uncle Four, have you been holding it in for that long?" "What do you know? This is a boy's virgin urine. Master Huang told me to pee in front of the door and say, 'Grandma, no, that hot thigh asterisk won't dare come in.' A asterisk hot thigh is likely easy to form if an animal jumps over the coffin. It ate so much and disappeared early this morning, it must have run off to find food." I clenched my hands, thinking of the long, red tongue and the monster's gaping mouth, my hackles rising. The air carried the scent of urine. I frowned. Uncle Four looked at me awkwardly. "I've been holding it for half the day, it's very concentrated." From the forest, the rustling of leaves echoed. I sat on the ground, thinking back to the past 2 days, feeling hazy, dimly sensing something was wrong. Uncle Four, when Grandma passed away, who was keeping vigil in the funeral hall, during those days, Father wouldn't let me near the shrine, and I was locked in the east room so I couldn't see clearly. Uncle Four rubbed his chin, thinking for a long time. "It was Aunt Three, I think." Connecting this to the events of the past few days, a bold idea began to form in my mind. Before I could voice it, Uncle Four spoke softly beside me, but Aunt Three wasn't holding anything at the time. Uncle Four and I looked at each other, both silent, as if we shared an unspoken understanding. In the middle of the day, no animal could have got close to Grandma's body, so where did the asterisk hot thigh come from? I yawned. A wave of drowsiness washed over me. For some reason, ever since the first night Grandma frightened me, I always felt sleepy and dizzy. Uncle Four gently patted my shoulder. "Girl, if you're sleepy, go to sleep. Uncle Four is here, there's nothing to be afraid of." I looked up into his deep black eyes, and complex emotions, like creeping vines, slowly spread within me. I leaned against Uncle Four. "Uncle Four, you really shouldn't be here." Yes, he shouldn't be here. A healthy, handsome 18-year-old man shouldn't spend his entire life farming in this mountain ravine, and he certainly shouldn't be with me now. I don't know if it was because I was too sleepy, or if leaning on Uncle Four's shoulder was truly comforting. I slept for a very long time before opening my eyes. Before me was the dark wall of the shed under the night sky, moonlight casting long shadows of Uncle Four and me on the ground. When Uncle Four saw me awake, he seemed very cheerful. He stood up and stretched. I wonder how Master Huang is doing with his preparations. I pressed my fingers together, looking down at the shadows on the ground. I pursed my lips and said, "Uncle Four, let me tell you a story." There was a scholar who brought his donkey to the capital for the imperial examinations. Seeing that a storm was coming, he and his donkey took refuge in an abandoned temple. In the middle of the night, a fierce wind truly did rage outside the window. In a flash of lightning, the scholar saw a ghostly silhouette on the window. Thunder boomed, and the Buddha statue in the temple seemed to come alive, but because it was pitch black all around, only with each flash of lightning did the statue suddenly appear ferocious. The scholar dared not be careless, staring intently at the ghost outside the window, slowly drawing the sword from its sheath. A bolt of lightning tore through the stormy night. The ghost pressed itself against the window, as if about to break through. The scholar gripped his sword tightly and slashed forcefully. He heard only a tragic scream, and the ghost vanished. Silence descended once more. The scholar sheathed his sword and sat quietly, waiting for dawn. The next morning, the scholar went outside to find his donkey, only to see a donkey with a distorted face at the foot of the wall. I held Uncle Four's hand. He looked at me doubtfully. I continued. It turned out that ghost was the scholar's own donkey. This person glanced at me, then looked down at the object on the ground. Go or not go? The creature's eyes were venomous. The scholar looked at the villagers who had surrounded the gate, then back at the person, trembling all over. I won't go. The person pulled out a small, long packet from beneath their clothes. In the moonlight, the packet shimmered with silver light. It was a packet of silver needles. The tall, thin man approached the creature, which trembled more violently. I'll ask again, go or not go. The man's tone was calm, yet it exerted an invisible pressure. Seeing the shining silver needles, the creature suddenly laughed. I won't go. Kill me, your lifespan is over. You should have reincarnated long ago, but instead, you grew greedy and possessed the body of the Chin family's matriarch. I'll ask again, go or not go. Hearing this, the villagers began to murmur, calculating whether their families had lost poultry, seizing this opportunity to demand compensation from the Chin family's big brother and Uncle Three. Seeing it remain speechless, mouth agape, the man gradually lost patience. He narrowed his eyes. Go or not go? The moment the words left his lips, a silver needle flew from his hand, plunging directly into its shoulder blade, and a plume of black smoke escaped. I won't go. Truly a foolish, untamable demon? The man said. Just as he was about to thrust the second needle, his face suddenly filled with terror, his mouth gaping wider and wider, as if a pair of hands were tearing it apart. But the villagers squinted, unable to see anything. I, however, saw it. The flayed woman from earlier that day was sitting on the man's neck, a pair of hands prying his mouth open from above and below. His mouth corners began to bleed and crack. Everyone rushed to cover his mouth, only to hear a sickening asterisk crack, a breaking sound. Amidst a spray of blood and bone, the man's jaw and the upper half of his head were now only attached by a strip of skin. Ah! The villagers began to scatter, screaming. The creature threw its mouth open wide again, laughing maniacally. Mother, mother! A gust of wind swept through, and black clouds obscured the crescent moon. Indeed, my good grandchild Lily, tomorrow Grandma will come find you again. The monster stretched its long neck, its sharp teeth clamping onto the needle before spitting it onto the ground as if it were something vile. Then, like an animal, it ran into the forest and disappeared. The village chief nudged the villager next to him, who, with trembling lips, still dared not step forward to carry the man's body. Only when the chief's face darkened did the others finally approach to carry the corpse away. Everyone dispersed. Before leaving, the village chief gave me a meaningful glance. I sank to the ground, taking a long time to regain my composure. Father and Uncle Three had carried Uncle Four down the mountain early. I was like a forgotten object in the shed. No one remembered me. Clearly, they had come to save Uncle Four. My life or death had never mattered to them. The asterisk hote thigh asterisk eats those closest to it first. I was just bait, wasn't I? The clouds dispersed, revealing a clear, bright moon. I looked down at the lotus flower Grandma had embroidered on my shoes, then at the wrinkles on my clothes, patting them gently. It wasn't that I was easily amused, but I truly couldn't help it. The corners of my mouth curled upwards. I clasped my hands and bowed towards the main hall. Thank you. When I descended the mountain by moonlight, the door was already bolted. I saw several tiny footprints near the rice scattered by the wall. My nose stung. Rest in peace, Grandma. Lily will not fail you. Father opened the door for me, his face grim. Before I could even steady myself, a slap landed on my face. My right cheek burned. How dare you let Uncle Four follow you? Now he's seriously injured and unconscious. I covered my face, my expression cold. Father, you told Uncle Four to find Master Huang, so why did you bring a butcher instead? Father's face changed color, clearly knowing I was deliberately provoking him. Father and Uncle Three exchanged glances. I was then locked in the East Room again by Uncle Three. Master Huang wasn't the only one who knew how to handle such matters, yet Father specifically told Uncle Four to invite a man notorious for only killing, never saving. I was merely bait, wasn't I? Hiding in Old Man Chu's abandoned house was just a ploy to lure Grandma out and kill her. But Father and Uncle Three had miscalculated. They hadn't expected that the one possessing Grandma wasn't Zai Fang, Old Man Chu's wife, whom they had tried so hard to conceal. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been so eager to declare it a asterisk hot thigh and try to deal with it immediately. I spread my arms and took a deep breath. The air, heavy with the stench of blood and decay, made me dizzy. The door moved and a figure appeared, Uncle Three. Uncle Three approached me with impure intentions. Lily, you're a grown girl now, you understand. Your Uncle Three and your father have suffered so much, raising you for 16 years. Your Aunt Three has been married to Uncle Three for years and hasn't had a child. And you're a girl. Your father is still your father. The Chin family simply cannot die out. I saw the light still on in the next room, and my heart turned cold. I slumped onto the bed, closing my eyes, ignoring him. With my eyes closed, I still rubbed the stinging pain on my slapped right cheek. Uncle Three, look out the window. Is that my grandma? Lily, stop talking nonsense. Everyone saw it today. That thing was injured and ran into the forest. Uncle Three, you have to see it for yourself. Some things you hear about or see in a chaotic moment are completely different from seeing them clearly with your own eyes when you're sober. Uncle Three finally turned his head to look out the window. Huh, what the? Uncle Three let out a guttural scream from deep in his throat. Pressed against the window was a giant human face. The face was utterly terrifying, its eyes and gaping mouth occupying 2/3 of it. Uncle Three was so frightened he suffered a heart attack, screaming as if his guts were being torn out. Clutching his chest, he rolled his eyes and collapsed beside the bed. I slowly rubbed my face, easing the pain. Only when silence fell by the bed did I open my eyes and step down. I saw Uncle Three's eyes wide open, his face like that of a dead man. I forced the corners of my mouth down, furrowed my brows, and after a long effort produced a crying expression. Father, father, help, someone help. Early in the morning, villagers gathered outside my house, whispering and gossiping, hearing Aunt Three's frantic cries from inside. How pitiful. First a asterisk hot thigh asterisk, now someone dead. Such bad luck. Indeed, if you ask me, their family shouldn't have had such consequences. I remember over 10 years ago, when their big brother married that beautiful woman, I said it was bad luck then. See, now they've met with disaster. They should have killed her from the very beginning. I clenched my fists, listening to the words outside. Father looked at Uncle Three's body laid in the yard and Aunt Three, who was about to faint from crying. He seemed at the end of his rope, his lips pale. Big brother, what do we do now? If we don't resolve this tonight, you and I will be next. The village chief, who is also my eldest uncle, patted my father's shoulder. Lily is still here. Tonight, even if we have to tie him up, we must bring Master Huang here. I said resentfully, if it can save both of you, uncle and father, Lily is willing to do anything. Father gave me a deep look. Indeed, my good daughter. Night fell, and Master Huang was indeed brought bound. My eldest uncle and father sat in the main house, smoking their pipes. Master Huang stood in the middle of the yard, forced to set up his altar. He frowned towards me, confined in the East Room, but a hint of a smile played in his peach blossom eyes, his lips constantly twitching. When everything was prepared, he sat before the altar. From the East Room, I could see him casually swinging his legs. The moon was covered by clouds, only the chirping of crickets and croaking of frogs filled the air. Trees were silent, wind still. Then from the forest came a rustling, followed by a dull thudding. Master Huang sat upright, and I too gathered all my focus. Decay exposed white bones. The door was flung open. I saw that thing, using my grandma's body, leap high into the air. The skin on its face had rotted away, revealing white bone. Master Huang began to perform the 7-star step. Tensely, I pounded on the window. The creature heard the sound and charged straight towards me. Just as Master Huang was about to take his final step, he slipped, twisting his ankle. Ouch! He cried out in pain, collapsing to the ground. The creature paid him no mind, taking 2 leaps to reach the door of my room. Click, the lock burst open. I faced those blood-red eyes and offered a genuine smile. Well done. I have waited 9 years for this day. On the first night, I had sat cross-legged in the corner of my bed, making hand seals. You are a good child, but alas, your mother's resentment is too great. She refuses to reincarnate, preventing you from reaching salvation. A child's innocent voice, not mine, emanated from my old body. I want to be with Mother. Mother is so lonely. Just listen to me and strike terror into them, and I will help both mother and child find peace. What do I need to do to listen? Anything to help Mother release her resentment and reincarnate. My child, I must warn you, if your mother embarks on the path of reincarnation, the mother-child bond between you two in this life will be completely severed. It's all right. I can wait. Wait for Mother to grow up. Wait for Mother to be happy, then I will find Mother. But the path of reincarnation is crowded, and your mother might not be reborn as a human for countless years. Wandering the human realm, a solitary ghost, that cold loneliness would be unbearable for you. It doesn't matter. I waited a very, very long time to meet Mother, though our fate was fragile. I can wait. I stepped out of the room, through the glass pane, and waved at Father and my eldest uncle. They weren't fools, they understood now. In their hearts, they were probably cursing me with every venomous word imaginable. But seeing Grandma beside me, their bravado diminished. Father nudged my eldest uncle, urging him to get the phone. My eldest uncle picked up the receiver, only to discover the phone line had been cut a long time ago. They had not dared to report their crimes to the authorities, but when their lives were threatened, their greed faded. It was all for themselves. Selfishness isn't inherently wrong, but the kind of selfishness that tramples over innocent lives is a great evil. I haven't forgotten how you conspired to marry off a 7-year-old girl to the underworld for just 300 yuan. I haven't forgotten how, when my mother brought me back from outside, you tortured her and boiled her to death. And I certainly haven't forgotten how Grandma was beaten to death. My grandma and my mother had just arrived. She should have had a brighter future out there in the world. You, along with that swindler, when Zai Fang's brother found her and wanted to take her back, you incited Old Man Chu to kill him, even ignoring pregnant Zai Fang's pleas, carving her flesh into pieces. When you couldn't conceal it, you pushed the blame onto Old Man Chu. How many women in this village were kidnapped and brought here? How much money did you receive? It's as clear as day in your hearts. Father and my eldest uncle were bewildered, unable to understand. They didn't know how I knew these things, and they never would. I gently opened the room door, turning my back and leaving. As I passed Master Huang, he grabbed my sleeve. "Lily, aren't you going to help your senior brother?" He rubbed his eyes and massaged his ankle, a pained expression on his face. I helped him leave the house, but a horrifying challenge pierced my left hand. "Be careful helping me." Ouch. He covered my ear with one hand, unable to dodge, playing his role perfectly. "Look, I'm injured. This ankle will surely need a few days to recover." A city hospital. When Uncle Chin woke up, a middle-aged woman was slumped beside him. He found himself on a clean, neat bed, unlike anything he'd ever seen, almost as if in a dream. The woman sensed he was awake and tearfully called for a doctor. A group of people surrounded him, checking his head and heart rate. He desperately wanted to ask where he was and how Lily was. A uniformed police officer stood before his bed, announcing that the middle-aged woman in front of him was his long-lost biological mother. 16 years ago, he had been kidnapped and sold. It wasn't until he was brought to the hospital that a girl reported the case, leading to his reunion. Uncle Chin was embraced tightly by the woman, unable to process it all at once. He suddenly remembered Lily's words. "You shouldn't be here, Uncle." He awkwardly opened his mouth. "Mother." The woman cried uncontrollably. She had waited 16 years for this moment, countless nights worrying whether her child was fed and warm. Many times, she had blamed herself, wanting to end her own life. If only I hadn't gone inside to warm milk for the baby, if only I had locked the gate, that person wouldn't have been able to enter the yard and snatch the child. She and her husband had searched every city, even visiting that mountain in this very city, but the people there were too cold. Coming down from the mountain, her husband fell ill, and before he died, he told her she must find their child. Uncle Chin clutched his mother's hand tighter. He remembered the story Lily told about the scholar and the donkey. The scholar wasn't ignorant that the donkey was outside. It was only because there were robbers in the temple that he pretended to be afraid of ghosts, allowing him to leave the abandoned temple unharmed. The top scholar, a madman, a dead man, said, "Listen, Lily, in the end, you still weren't cruel enough to strike the final blow." Master Huang helped me deal with the aftermath. I sat on the hillside, clutching the exquisite jar, gazing into the distance. I'm very confused. If most women in this village were kidnapped, why didn't they think about escaping or resisting to the very end? Truthfully, the first time I met them, I thought they were indigenous. I shook my head thoughtfully, not answering his question. In reality, the answer wasn't hard to guess. Those who resisted either died or, like my grandma, had their feet bound into 3-inch, golden lotuses, making escape impossible. Some survived, but they were all assimilated. Assimilation is a terrifying thing, more horrifying than any ghost story in the world. It's like poison, slowly eroding one's spirit and worldview, completely exposing human nature. My great-grandmother, my eldest uncle, my father, my uncle 3, in their youth, they had also been taught good values and education from the outside world. They were once polite, humble, and moral. But after years of archaic customs and that environment, coupled with burgeoning desires, they were ultimately assimilated. Master Huang patted my shoulder. "Let's go, let's leave this place. We'll take Grandma to meet Master." That old master who traveled everywhere was originally engaged to Grandma, but the sedan chair didn't take her to him. Instead, it took her to a hell that imprisoned her for life. The old master didn't believe the village rumors that she had run off with a lover. He spent his journey learning all sorts of miscellaneous skills just to find his bride. He saved a child destined for a short life. He took him as a disciple. That disciple's family revealed an old woman named Chin who shared a similar tragic fate. He found her, but at that time, Mother was pregnant with me, and Grandma found hope, so she couldn't leave. When we arrived at Master's abode, it was already completely dark, and fits of coughing echoed from inside the house. Master Huang and I saw a spittoon under Master's bed, blood almost overflowing from it. Master's cheeks were deeply sunken, and the whites of his eyes had begun to yellow. Seeing us, he forced a smile and called us closer. "Come here, my children." Seeing the jar I held in my hands, his cloudy eyes seemed to hold a flicker of light. I brought the jar closer and handed it to him. He cautiously reached out and touched it. After a long moment, a sob seemed to burst from his chest, and then his face was drenched in tears. "Yanli, my dear, you prepared for so many years, even using your own body, just for Lily and A4 to escape this sea of suffering. You have endured so much. I was useless. I couldn't protect you." Master Huang and I stood guard at the door, listening to Master and Grandma talk throughout the night about his experiences and deeds. Until nearly dawn, Master said one sentence, "Yanli, you are free now." After that, the house suddenly fell silent. I saw a tear gently roll down Master Huang's cheek. My own eyes burned, but no tears would come. Another spring arrived. I stood by the sea, releasing Grandma's final ashes into the vast expanse. I looked out at the distant horizon, strangely boundless, where the sea and sky merged into one. Seagulls soared past me. The beautiful landscapes Grandma never got to see, I had brought her to witness. Master Huang waited for me for a long time. I walked over to him. He opened the car door. "Let's go. I'll take you to the park to relax." I watched the children playing and laughing on the grass, saw the tender shoots of green beginning to sprout on the branches, and suddenly thought how wonderful it would be if Grandma could see the outside world again. How wonderful if children could play carefree, if boys and girls alike received equal education and held good perspectives on life. "Look, that kite is flying so high just like you. You've escaped." "Lily," I followed the direction of Master Huang's pointing hand. Children held thin strings, and kites of all kinds floated freely in the sky like fish in a current. But how many people were still trapped in that hidden corner, waiting for salvation or despairingly dissolving into it? "The flowers have all bloomed." A little girl, dressed beautifully, cheered happily, leading a little boy as they dashed past us from behind. My face suddenly burned. My hand went up to wipe away a tear, then tears flowed like a flood. I wiped and wiped, but they wouldn't stop. "Lily, you're crying. From the first time I met you at 7, hidden in the mountain ravine, I've never seen you cry like this. Just cry it all out." I let Master Huang embrace me, ignoring the curious stares around us. Finally, a choked sob escaped my throat, and my tears poured down even more relentlessly. Spring returned, and 100 flowers blossomed.